I'm Gab. He's Jules. Kind of slightly cloudy skies over West London, more or less. But don't worry, because we have quite the show for you. Real Madrid open their season against Osasuna. That's going to be a main thing, but we're going to get into other stuff because, of course, Alexander Isak finally making a statement. And how about that swerve from Ebre Eze?
Yeah.
And we thought he was going one way, he goes the other way, and then back the other way. So we're going to get on that on the Gab and Jules podcast. But let's start with Real Madrid because we were all excited. We'd all gotten the excuses in early about how they were going to be tired and preseason and blah, 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 blee, blee, blee. And they end up winning 1-0. But I feel like this is one of those games where, yes, they look tired. They look out of sync. A lot of new players. But also, Osasuna parked the bus. So it's the kind of thing where you score straight away, and then maybe you get one result, you go the other way, and you get another result.
Yeah, I think we were just all looking about how Xavi Alonso will set this team up for his first game and look at the structure. And I think the structure was very good, which is the most important. Then with the ball, it was a lot predictable and a bit pedestrian at times, but you could see what they wanted to do. I think once you get the structure in place and who plays where, and we saw the two wingers, Brahim Diaz and Vini, really wide and a lot of freedom from Mbappe. And you saw the defenders really high, especially the two wing backs quite inside too. So there was a lot of really good things structure-wise. With the ball, it just needs a bit more time, I think, to get them up to speed to what exactly Xabi Alonso wants. But the structure was good. And for once, they didn't suffer in transitions, didn't suffer in counter-attack football. There was no save to make for Courtois in goal. The rest defense, I think, might still be a bit of an issue, but certainly in terms of defending well, they did that. So I thought it was good.
Yeah, we're going to break this down further because I think it requires more attention, especially whether, Arda Güler in midfield to be that creative spark, which, let's face it, is lacking, is still lacking. Had his moments. We also saw some Mastantuono. But I want to focus on something else, which is the use of the wing backs, because I think that's quite interesting to me in the sense that Carreras comes in and effectively straight into the side.
Yeah.
This means it's lights out for everybody else, you think?
Yeah.
Like you don't think the job is up for grab? Like we might see.
No. I think this is pretty much the team plus Bellingham when he comes on, replacing probably Arda Güler or Brahim Diaz, depending on what Xabi Alonso wants to do.
But if he replaces Brahim Diaz, then what? We think Valverde out wide?
Yeah, potentially we'll have to see, or slightly different for Vinicius and Mbappe. But yeah, I think certainly the back four and the keeper, that's it.
I think back four to some degree. But there's questions. We'll get to that later, but we have to talk Julien.
Yeah. Number 10, Julien.
And also wins a penalty. And kind of, like you said, one of the favorite things people say is that people forget that he scored 40 goals last year for Real Madrid.
Yeah.
So he's on track.
Yeah, he's on track. He looked sharp. He looked good. He was clearly the main threat going forward. I mean, he had 8 successful dribbles compared to 1 for Vinicius and 2 for Brahim Diaz, or 2 for Vinicius, 1 for Brahim Diaz.
Sorry to jump in, but 8 successful dribbles in a game in which he didn't have a lot of space, in which you had to come back to get the ball. So in other words, it's one thing people have a lot of successful dribble because they play in transition and there's one guy, you knock the ball past them and that's a dribble. But I think the stuff we saw from Vini was different.
Yeah, different. And Vini was the one to come off, not Kylian.
Sorry, Vini. I meant
from Mbappe. Yeah, but Vini was still the first one to come off, and Brahim too, not Kylian. I think there's a lot of responsibilities. I think he likes that a lot. I think this game, as being the first game of the season, still shows that he's the main player now here. He's the main relay to Xabi Alonso on the pitch as well. And that number 10, which he loves, which is the one obviously he has for the national team as well, I think it's very important to him. So it was a good start.
Good start. I think for Mbappe, overall, I think there's a lot of stuff to get into. And I'm going to be kind of the naysayer here. I think you've got a bunch of younger players who are trying to integrate. I think this team feels pretty incomplete to me, and it goes back to the thing that we talked about all the time last season, which is that creativity in midfield.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering whether we might yet see some moves between now and the end of the window. If it does happen, it's going to come out of nowhere because there's absolutely no movement, no suggestion.
Yeah.
Other than the eternal Rodrigo being moved out, presumably to raise money or to plot something later on. And of course, we're going to break that down on the Gab and Jules podcast. But in one sentence, is this team complete?
They're not going to sign anybody, I think.
Is this team complete?
Yeah.
To you? No. But does it look like not? Are they?
I think. I think so.
All right.
I like it.
I disagree. So there we go. All right, let's stick to this subject. We were talking about Alfair. I think we disagree on this point. When I say complete, I don't mean like, will they sign somebody else? Is their work complete? But does this team seem fully well-rounded to you? And to me, it doesn't.
No. I mean, the only one is the Toni Kroos replacement, which I'm not even sure exists, to be fair. So I don't know where they could find it. They could find other options and other solutions for it. Arda Güler might be one. Dean Huijsen in a very advanced position in possession could be another one. I just don't think there's another player like Toni Kroos to go and sign for them. So for me, it's complete because they won't find another Toni Kroos.
You're not going to get another Toni Kroos. I think the question, as we saw last season, was the creativity. Also, I feel like last season, what we banged on about were obviously shorthanded at the back, and they've addressed that, right? The right back position, and they've addressed that. By the way, great to see Dani Carvajal back. I think in certain games, I think he might actually, obviously Trent will be the number one, but I think we might, when you want a different profile, somebody goes outside or whatever, I think he's going to get significant minutes. But in terms of the creativity of the midfield in situations where either you're a goal down or the other team sits deep, that's something that needs to be addressed. I was happy that I saw Dani Ceballos make that little cameo appearance, minute 90. Yeah. But then I look at this and I say, if the Arda Güler passing experiment doesn't work, then Dani Ceballos is your most creative passer in midfield. It's not a great situation to be in if you're Real Madrid.
Yeah, you need to find another solution. I think it's also more controlling the tempo, not so much in this game because Osasuna were very inoffensive anyway, and Real Madrid had control of the game, but it's when the opposition gets better. Not so much the creativity, because creativity can come from wingers, can come from deeper in midfield, Bellingham, Arda Güler, even Mbappe. There's a lot of things you can find. It's more the way Kroos could controlling a game that nobody can do that. I'm always expecting or hoping for Tchouaméni to be able to do that. I think he's got a lot of qualities. I'm just not sure if he will ever get to this level, but for now, he's the guy sitting there in front of the back four. We saw a kind of a hybrid Tchouaméni at the Club World Cup. That doesn't seem to be the case. Certainly, it was not in this game. There was just a normal back four, no wing backs, no back three, nothing like that. So that might be another option, because then you organize your midfield slightly differently than if you play 4-3-3 with a holding player like Toni Kroos used to do before. So that could be another option. But I don't know. I think Xabi Alonso, and we saw that with the ball anyway in this Osasuna game. It's just not, the fluidity is not always there. It's very predictable again. So he needs to find other options to what to do with the ball. But yeah, it will always be something that he needs to work on.
We know Real Madrid are going to be dangerous in the one-on-ones, and goals are going to come from that because they have outstanding players. And I think, I think. In midfield, there are players who can, as you said, who can create sort of extemporaneously. Controlling the game is one aspect. He has to impose his patterns of play. That is the other way you create chances, right? Which isn't always easy because you don't have that much time on the training pitch. He had the luxury that he was able to do that throughout the Club World Cup. I remember you saying that it's basically like sort of preseason one.
Yeah.
During the year, they'll be playing twice a week, so there'll be less opportunity to do that. My concern with the patterns of play is, to do that, you have to kind of settle on a lineup and then maybe you make changes. And when I look at this lineup, my question is, when Bellingham returns, he's going to start.
Yeah.
And so who do you miss out? How do you rejigger things, right? The obvious thing, I suppose we touched upon it earlier, is you put him in midfield and then you put Valverde.
Yeah,
in the Brahim Diaz position.
Yeah, or you change the system. I mean, there's 3 months to get ready before that. It's not like if Jude was coming back next week or something. So 3 months of you being able to figure things out to get this team without Bellingham. The worry right now for Xabi Alonso is not Bellingham, and where Bellingham fits is get this team going. And as we saw, the structure was there, and you could clearly see what he wanted to do with this starting 11 in that 4-3-3 formation, and get them playing better with the ball, with more movement, with more understanding, more patterns, everything. Then you can think about where would Bellingham fit and how he would fit. The one thing about Xabi Alonso is the pragmatism, and sometimes it didn't really work out by Leverkusen. We said many times last season it was some weird things he was doing in his starting lineup and his system and his formation and his tactics. But I think he can worry about that in 3 or 3.5 months' time. For now, it's just how you make this team better. We saw a team that was playing a lot on the left-hand side. I think 14 of their 17 attacks was on the left-hand side, only 3 on the right-hand side. So why is Trent there for? Why is Brahim there for? It could be Brahim, Rodrigo, it could be Valverde, it could be Gula on that side, it could be anybody really. Clearly the ball was on Carreras and Vini a lot of the time.
Which was the problem last year too.
Yeah, but it was too much for it not to be planned. It's just not like... where you, the way I watch that game is like, okay, this is what they've worked on. This is the ball goes onto that left-hand side. You bring Carreras a bit inside, and Gula is also in that kind of triangle, and you try to make it work. It was, again, a bit pedestrian at times, but that was clearly the option. The dribbling and the 1v1 that you mentioned, Gabi, was not good enough. Brahim, 1 dribble against Osasuna, Vini 2 dribbles against Osasuna. This is not good enough. There was a few times where they were isolated 1v1. They could have make a difference. They didn't. They really didn't. So there's a few things to work on. And again, for me, most importantly, that rest defense of when you lose the ball, what happens? And they were okay on Tuesday night. There'll be games where they're far more unbalanced, and maybe Bellingham can come into that and help for that rest defense if it's not fixed by then.
I'm intrigued by Heisen. And obviously the level is passing. I'm always hesitant when you have outstanding center backs who pass and say, oh, you can play in midfield. I'm like, yeah, but very different playing in midfield.
Yeah,
when,
yeah.
You're at the back, you got one guy pressing you, and you always have more time on the ball. The midfield is different. But from what we've seen so far, and I think kind of from his past, he certainly has that creativity that is the option. And we talked about it a little bit before. Could there be situations in possession where Tchouaméni kind of drops into the back 3 maybe, and Heisen steps into midfield? And that would be pretty exciting, right? Because you'd have two outstanding passers kind of moving into midfield in him and Trent. I think it's something that needs a lot of work. It's something that I think he wants to implement. When you mentioned there too, the attacks on the left-hand side and Brahim isolated on the other side, obvious thing there is, hey, big diagonal switch and play, right? We see it over and over again. If you can do that. And so find a way to get the ball, if Trent comes inside, find a ball to get the ball to Trent so he can get it out to Diaz or whoever's out on the right side, right? Or maybe have Heisen do the diagonal. I think these are all things that are going to come. I think where he's behind is I think he was hoping, and we said the creativity in midfield. I hate to bring up Camavinga as well, again, for the umpteenth time with his injuries. But I think his development arc, what they were hoping for when they signed him, has definitely been slowed a lot by all the physical injuries that this poor guy's had to deal with.
Yeah.
Can we see it? I know they're different profiles, but both sort of center left in that 3-man midfield. Could we see a Camavinga? Is it basic Camavinga and Guler for that? Are they going to be the ones auditioning?
No, yeah. I mean, different profile, of course, but if you can have a player like Camavinga fit and ready, I think Xabi Alonso can make him improve a lot, and then I think he can have a role to play through the season in this team. But again, for now, it's not the case. He's been really badly hit by injuries the whole last season. I think it's difficult for him, even losing confidence, losing his place in the national team, of course, because he hasn't been playing enough. So I don't know. The fight with Huijsen that is interesting is they played so much on the left-hand side because he's the left centre-back too. So the ball comes to him a lot and the ball goes there because that's his side compared to Militao on the right-hand side and Trent. For Trent, I think he was underused in this game. But again, it's normal. It's his first LaLiga game for Real Madrid. Yes, he played in the Club World Cup, but that was already more than a month ago. So you would expect that Trent's role in this team to get better and to improve. Otherwise, I thought he was a bit wasted on Tuesday night in that position before even coming off and Dani Carvajal coming on. And I agree with you. I could easily see Carvajal starting a lot of games ahead of Trent in this team, depending on the opposition. So it's still trying to find the structure is there. It's within that structure you put those pieces, and who brings you the most. But I think for Huijsen, he can even be very advanced in possession, like we saw on Tuesday. He played super high. He played very much in the Osasuna half, and have Militao sweeping everything behind him or somebody else. So I think that's interesting to see what kind of role Huijsen will have under Xabi Alonso.
when we talk about Xabi Alonso, this is really somebody who's very comfortable in different systems, kind of likes tweaking his systems to find the edge. So I think this is very much potentially an area of growth. Now, the one thing, and I touched upon it before, is that especially as you're experimenting with different systems or you're trying to introduce patterns of play, which, patterns of play, just in terms of terminology and lingo. What we mean by this can exist in different systems. You can have the same pattern of play in a 3-4-3 or in a 4-4-2 or whatever. Then the system is obviously the way you cover the spaces and whatever. My one concern is Mastantuono, Endrick, Gonzalo Garcia. You've got 3 kids in there who presumably you want to give minutes to. Do we think, and obviously there's a trade-off, right? One is I loan one of these guys out so they can play more, but then at the same time, then they need to settle and whatever. What is your guess? Do you think they're all going to stay, and are they going to get minutes and then maybe pay a price for it? Or is he just going to say, okay, you guys are going to grow at least for the first 6 months or 3 months just by playing a few minutes here and there and training with Mbappe and Chouameni and all those guys? Or do we think that they're going to get a more significant role?
No, I think it's probably what we saw a little bit on Tuesday. Gonzalo Garcia coming on as the Mbappe backup, and in this case, Vini came off, Mbappe went on to the left, and Garcia centrally, Mastantuono, the backup to Brahim, certainly in this game. Then you could have other options, as we said, on that right wing, but I think that looked pretty good, and Mastantuono brings you something a bit different to the other forwards. And then for Endrick, he's again on the same level as Gonzalo Garcia, probably. You would think he got the number 9, which I think is quite significant, the number 9 shirt after Mbappe swapped for the 10. And so you've got those different options. Are they going to play a lot? No. Is
that a mistake in Endrick's case, especially because he did this all
he
of
will be
last
the one,
season?
really, yeah, I guess. And we haven't touched yet about Rodrigo too. So I think for Mastantuono at 18, you probably take what you can for the first 6 months or season. Same for Gonzalo Garcia. You were very promising in the Club World Cup. This is very different. This is the season. And for Endrick, I mean, he's injured right now, and I'm not sure he's going to go on loan somewhere. So for the first 6 months, you see what happens, and then maybe decide something different in January. But it's a tricky situation.
And that brings us to Rodrigo, which I was saving the best for last, because we've talked about this a lot. Every time he says the same, Xabi Alonso says the same thing.
Yeah.
Now, I think there's situations where, we know this having covered the game a long time, coaches toe the party line. And I think the party line coming from the White House, from Florentino, is Rodrigo, he either stays or we let him go for a big fee. And to do that, we can't say or signal that he's not part of your plans.
Yeah.
So every time he talks about how important he is, but then the people can see that he never plays them.
Never.
How does this end? Because I know people are always going to wheel out Saudi. I don't know how Rodrigo. I mean, Rodrigo's got World Cup coming up and everything, right? That's a tough sell. Do you think he's handling it? I don't blame Xabi Alonso as a new coach who's just arriving in, even though he is Xabi Alonso, not making any waves. But, but this isn't good for him.
No. It's not good for Rodrigo.
It's not good for Xabi Alonso.
It's not good for Xabi Alonso either. Rodrigo apparently hasn't told Real Madrid he wanted to leave. Maybe he's
not going to. Why would he?
Yeah. But I guess he can't have a season where he doesn't play at all. And yes, there's enough games he would play there and there a little bit. But I think the signal is pretty strong from Xabi Alonso, whether it's the Club World Cup or even in the opening LaLiga game. There you prefer Brahim Diaz first of all, then you prefer Mastantuono, and maybe it's just a question
maybe you'll
of profile.
prefer Arda Güler when Camavinga's fit. Yeah,
and I guess Rodrigo's best position is definitely not as a right winger, so maybe that's also in Xabi Alonso's mind. So okay, this could be Brahim Diaz's favorite position. In Mastantuono, certainly where he played there. Güler had played there many times before, and certainly as a left footer, it's better for him than for Rodrigo, who prefers the left-hand side where he cannot play, certainly not at Real Madrid. So, I don't know. I think there's no market for him, certainly not at the price that Real Madrid want. And maybe they'd be willing to go down from 100 million or 90 million to 60 or 70. Even at that price, I don't think anyone moves for him.
I think the only way it happens is high-profile club who doesn't want to spend a lot of money, takes him on loan, Champions League club, takes him on loan, option to buy, and then they go and sort this out later. I think that if he does go. I'm not saying it's like this thing. If he does go, I think that is really the only viable solution for him at this stage. And by the way, I hate to say it, when you make mistakes, when you build unbalanced teams 1, 2 years ago, it has knock-on effects down the line. And I think that's what we saw with the Mbappe signing. I'm not saying the Mbappe signing was wrong, but things could and should have been addressed there that weren't.